my channel. If you're new here, my name's Maria, and in today's video I'm basically going to go through my TBR cart and give it a bit of a summer refresh. This is quite a new cart for me, and I was kind of trying to pick my priority TBR and books that I was really anticipating, but the more I'm looking at it, I think quite a few of these are more geared towards the autumn and winter months. And I mean, it shouldn't really matter when you read a book, you know, depending on the weather, but I do find that some of the more dense fantasies and things like that, I tend to enjoy them a bit more when it's the autumn and the winter time. So there's a few on here that I definitely think are more geared towards that time. So I basically just want to go through all of my physical TBR which I have on these shelves, which there is quite a lot on there. You know, some of these I have read, but a lot of these I haven't. So I just want to go through here, kind of look at anything that I think is maybe summer appropriate, maybe try and get those on the TBR cart and swap out some of these more dense kind of darker reads, so that when I'm doing my TBR picks that I'm actually reading something that is more appropriate to the season and will kind of fit with my mood reading and it being summer. So yeah, without further ado, let's just have a look at my shelves, see what I can pull from there, see if there's anything that I should be getting onto the TBR cart, and then we'll do a bit of a shuffle when we get back. Okay, so just to give you a bit of an idea of the kind of choices that I have, I've pulled forward all of the more summery or summer appropriate, or some of these are just end of series of books that I have already started. So I've basically pulled out anything that I think looks like a summery read, kind of pulled those forward, and I've got a few options down the bottom here as well, because most of these, because they're fantasy, are more autumn and winter orientated, but these are kind of the main ones that I've pulled out because I think they would fit quite summer vibes. So I'll just go through some of those for you now. Final Strife. This is by Sarah L. Arifi, and basically this is a YA novel, so this is one I've had for quite some time, and I think the third one is actually coming out this year as well. So it's one that I wanted to get to for some time, and I don't know, just the setting of it and things like that, I think it would be a good summer read. So this is potentially one that I'll start. And then this next one, What the River Knows. The reason I think this would be good for a summer read is because essentially it is supposed to be based on like the Mummy, or it gives you the Mummy vibe. So I think anything set in the likes of Egypt and things like that, it's probably going to be a good option. So definitely think this is one that I'll pull out and get on the cart. Then this next one, Girl, Goddess, Queen. Again, I've had this since last year, and the reason I picked this one up is because it's a Persephone and Hades retelling. So I just think it would be a fun romance. It still has that fantasy vibe, but it just has more of a romance heavy plot. I believe this one's quite a feminist retelling, so it's not kind of your typical Persephone's kind of the damsel in distress. Apparently it does have quite a feminist theme. So yeah, I think this is definitely one that I'll pick to put on there. And then some of these, just because of where I believe they're set, so The Stardust Thief, Spice Road, I do think that they would be good options as well. Then we have The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea, and I mean, it's just because the cover kind of looks summery and because it mentions the sea, I think this is probably going to be a good option for summer. And again, I think this is based on like kind of a fairy tale or folklore, so those are usually better summer reads as well. And then a few more here that I've been trying to get to. So The Adventures of Amina al-Sarifi, and again, this is just because it's based at sea. She's an old pirate queen, and you know, she's supposed to be retiring, but she's decided to go on kind of a last quest, so I think this would be a good one to add on there as well. Then just a couple that I think just have a bit more of a summery theme. So yeah, I'll pick out some options and then I'll let you know what I've decided to put on the shelf. Okay, so hopefully you can see this, but yeah, I think I picked out a few that I want to add on to my summer TBR, but we're going to have to make some room on here because this is pretty full. So we'll basically just go through shelf by shelf. I'll take off the ones that I think are probably a little bit more autumn winter, and then we'll get the new ones put on there as well. So on this top shelf, there's a couple that I can see straight away are probably more geared towards autumn and winter. And the first one would be this one, which is The Scarlet Veil by Shelby Mahurin. I never know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Basically, this is kind of a companion novel to the Serpent and Dove series, which follows a witch and a witch hunter and kind of their relationship. But this one, I believe, follows kind of vampires, and so I just think because of that, it's probably a better read for around kind of spooky season, so September, October time, even in winter time. It's quite a long read as well, but I just think with the vibes of this one, it's probably one that would be better for later in the year. So I'm going to take this one off, and we can always put it back on when we're looking at an autumn TBR. The next one I'm going to take off is this Jennifer L. Armentrout, Fall of Ruin and Wrath. And again, it's just because the cover is maybe giving summery vibes, but I do just think with her type of romantasy, I could probably read this at any time of the year. So I might just swap this one out so that we can get something that's a bit more summer appropriate onto the cart. But yeah, there's no real reason that I'm taking this off. I don't think it's more geared towards winter as far as I know, but I think I'll just take it off so that we can put something that is definitely a summer read on there instead. And then this next one is The Curse of Saints by Kate Dramas, and I'm not too sure what to do with this one because It is more of a fantasy read, and I don't think it's really geared towards summer, but Coffee and Tales, who I will put on the screen and I will link in the description, she read this recently and said it was really good, so I do really want to get to it soon, but I'm not sure if it's really summer geared, so I might keep this on here for now because there's no real reason to kind of take it off. I don't know when it's set or anything like that. I don't think it's, you know, particularly in a cold setting or anything like that, but I do think it's a bit more of a fantasy based book, so maybe it should be autumn winter, but I'm going to keep it on for now because I do really want to get to it soon, so I'm going to keep it on this pile for now. So the next one on here is Yellowfaced by R.F. Kuang. Now this one I do think would be a good summer read because it is a bit more of literary fiction. Basically follows this author who one of her colleagues dies in a freak accident. She had already written a manuscript, and the writer who died was actually a minority, so a person of colour, and the main protagonist that we're following, June Hayward, she basically uses this as an opportunity to take her manuscript, publish it as her own under kind of an ambiguous name for her own gain. And I think it's just kind of a rhetoric around publishing and how publishing can be quite still racist and prejudiced depending on where someone's from. And yeah, I've heard that this is just a really good one. I've heard it is a bit of a, like, by the end of it you're kind of almost siding with June, just the way that it's written. She's almost kind of rationalizing it so much within her mind where you're thinking, is she right? But obviously she's very much not. So yeah, I think I will get to this one soon. I do have the audiobook of this one via Libby, so I probably will read this within the next month or so I'll keep this on the cart because I probably will be getting to it soon. So the next two that we're on here, this one I definitely want to get to in the summer. I think the cover is giving real summer vibes, and I do have the sequel to this one as well, so it's Song of Silver, Flame Like Night. Now this one I'm not 100% sure what it's about, but I just heard that it's a really good one. I think it's based on folklore, and I think just the cover of it is giving kind of more summer vibes. I do like a lot of, if it's kind of Chinese or Japanese mythology, I do find that I like to read that in the summer just for some reason, just with the settings and things like that. I just think it fits the aesthetic. So again, I'm going to keep that on there because it is one that I wanted to get to for some time, so hopefully I will get to it this summer. So this next one, This Vicious Grace, is basically about a girl who, her touch is supposed to be powerful, but basically what it actually does is kills anyone that she comes in contact with. So she kind of has this deadly touch, and she is supposed to be finding a partner to save her kingdom. I believe there's a magic that's coming up to take over the kingdom, and essentially she is supposed to be saving it by an alliance or something like that, but she hasn't been able to because of this deadly touch. Now this one I did have on the cart because just with the yellow it looked kind of summery, but when I'm reading the synopsis I do think that this might be one that could be a bit more of an autumn read. Although it's set on an island, it kind of has lemons on the cover, which for some reason makes me think of summer. No, I think I'll keep this on the cart because I do think that this might be a good summer fantasy to read, so yeah, I'll keep this on there. And I don't think I mentioned, it's This Vicious Grace by Emily Thied. Okay, so now that we have the top one empty, I'm just going to pick out a few of the options that I've picked off my shelves to see how many we can fit on there and to kind of see how much room we need to make on the rest of the shelves. So the first one that I'm going to put on there is The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. So again, as I say, it's by Axie O, and this one kind of follows a story where essentially the sea god or sea king takes a girl every year or every couple of years or every how many years within this time, and essentially the main character's brother's girlfriend is picked that year to be the sacrifice. But instead of allowing that, because she knows that her brother really loves his girlfriend, the main protagonist in this one goes in her place, and we just kind of follow her journey along there. So I think this would be a nice easy read. I think it will be quite quick and fun, again because it's based on fairy tale and folklore. I do think it would be a great summer read. So the next one I'm going to add is A Fragile Enchantment by Alison Saft. Now this one was a fairy lit book, I think in around January time or something like that, but it gives off kind of Bridgerton Regency era vibes, and basically it follows the main protagonist who is a dressmaker, and her magic is what helps her be, you know, skilled at her job, but it is also the magic that's going to eventually kill her. Now as part of the story she ends up being the dressmaker for the prince. He is described as being cold and prickly and probably kind of a grumpy sunshine going on here, but it is quite a short read, and I mean, firstly, just look at those edges, but it is quite a short read. I do think this would be a nice fun fluffy kind of fairy tale-esque read, and again just summertime is the best time to read those type of stories, so I'm going to add this one onto the cart just for an extra option. The next one I'm going to add on is The Unmaking of June Farrow by Adrienne Young. Now this one I've read Spells for Forgetting by her, and I absolutely adored the writing. I just thought it was really good. Now that one was definitely more of an autumn read for me just with the setting, but this one from reading it, it's based on a flower farm. It follows a few sisters. Their mother goes missing, and essentially through their journey to try and find her, they find this door that takes them to a mystical or magical land. And I've heard this one's really good. I've heard that the storytelling is amazing. amazing. If you like Adrian Young, it's probably one that you're going to like. And I just think the vibes of this one, so looking at it, you know, it is a little bit orange and maybe a bit more autumny looking, but I do think just from reading the synopsis and just with the flowers and kind of with the inside end papers, I do think it's giving off summer vibes. So I'm going to use that as an excuse to get it on my TBR. It is one I've wanted to read for some time, so yeah, gonna get it added on there. The next one I'm going to add on is The Adventures of Amina Al-Sarafi, and again I'm going to add this on because I do think the best time to read anything like this with pirates and things like that is going to be in the summer, and I feel like if I don't read it in the summer, I'm just going to keep pushing it back until next spring, summer again. So I want to read it as soon as possible. I do have the audiobook for this one as well, so I always have to remember that I need to keep some choices for audiobooks. So yeah, I'll add this onto the TBR because I think it is one that I will get to, and it's one that I want to try and read before the end of summer, so I think this would be a good one to have on there. And then the last one I'm going to add on to that top shelf is Girl Goddess Queen. Yes, Girl Goddess Queen by Bea Fitzgerald, and basically for no other reason than I love a Hades and Persephone retelling, and I really wanted to get to this one, and because it was kind of in the back of my shelves I forgot about it, but I think the sequel to this one is coming out in the summer as well, so I want to try and read this one just to see if I want to continue with the series. But I've heard some good things about it, I've heard some mixed things, some people weren't too fussed about the way it was told, but Hades and Persephone, you know, I'm probably going to enjoy it. Yeah, I'm going to add this to the cart as an option for my summer TBR. Okay, so with this book cart, the main issue is that in these bottom shelves, hardbacks are a little bit difficult to get on there without damaging them, so I'm worried about damaging them too much, but I'm just going to go through here and take out any that I think are a little more autumn or winter coded, and then we'll see how much space we have to put maybe some paperbacks, or if we do need to try and fit the hardbacks in there as well, then we can push those in. But I think again there's a couple here that are kind of standing out to me as maybe not being the most summer reads, and the first of those would be so Juniper and Thorn and Lake's Edge, and I think just even looking at the covers you can tell these are probably a bit more autumn appropriate. So yeah, I think I'll take these out because I do think these will be better picks for those months. Then the next one I'm going to take off is For the Wolf by Hannah Witten, and I think this one is kind of based, it's a Little Red Riding Hood kind of retelling I think, or it's kind of inspired by that. It's basically about two princesses where one is for the throne and one is for the wolf, so the wolf is kind of I believe a being that they sacrifice one of the heirs to. But yeah, I think this one's going to be a bit darker. I think it's going to be based in kind of a forest, misty, you know, you're kind of getting those vibes from the cover. So yeah, I think I'll keep this one for later in the year as well. And then these next two are probably just because they're a bit more dense, a bit more, well this one's probably a bit more sci-fi, but I think you can tell kind of looking at it, kind of based in space, necromancers. So yeah, I think this one's definitely going to be a bit more of a autumn winter read. And then Jade City, I think just because it's probably a little bit more dense. I mean, it is an urban fantasy, I believe, in China. Yeah, I'm just not sure if this is one that I would probably pick up in the summer. It's probably a bit more dense and I want to be reading around this time of year, but again, it's not because the setting I think is anything that's very autumn or winter-esque. It's just one that I think I'll be more in the mood to read when it comes to those autumn winter months. Okay, and the last few I'm going to remove are The Wolf and the Woodsman by Ava Reid, and it's similar to For the Wolf with this one. I just think it's based on kind of Little Red Riding Hood. I do think it's going to be more of that kind of woodsy, misty kind of atmosphere, so I think it's going to be more of an autumn winter read, and I'll definitely be more in the mood for that then. And then Once and Future Witches, spooky season, Halloween, I just think this one's going to be a better read around that time of year. And then The Bear and the Nightingale, I believe this one is set in winter in northern Russia, yeah, so it's cold, snow, falling. I do really want to read this one, and that's kind of why I put it on my priority TBR, but I just think it's going to be more atmospheric if I read this maybe around Christmas time or something like that. So yeah, I'm going to take this off here tentatively for now, but if the whim takes me I may pick it up. But just reading the synopsis, I think it would be a better read around winter time. So from taking those off, I do actually have an entire shelf free now to maybe put in some more summer appropriate reads. So I am going to add in What the River Knows by Isabel Ibanez. And again, just because it has been said that it's kind of like The Mummy, I think our main protagonist, her parents go to Egypt on an expedition. They end up missing and she just goes there to try and figure out what happened to them. But I've heard this one's really good. I've heard it definitely gives off The Mummy vibes, which one of the best movies ever. So yeah, I definitely want to try and read this in summer. As I say, because these are hardbacks, they're a little bit more difficult to get in here without damaging them, so I'm probably just going to lay them flat, because with the grill that's here, I'm a little bit precious about my books and I don't want to be damaging them. The next one I'm going to add in is Tress of the Emerald Sea, and this is by Brandon Sanderson, and this is kind of part of his wider series, but I've been told that you don't really need to have read any of that. There are a few Easter eggs in here that you'll understand a little bit more if you've read all of his books, but you definitely don't need to. This one was part of his kind of secret project collection where he wrote 4 books which were kind of standalones, but as I say, they do connect to some of his bigger worlds. And this one follows Tress, who is in love with basically the crown prince or the duke or something of this kingdom, but his father decides that she is not good enough for him and sends him on a quest. And basically Tress goes on a quest to find him because he goes missing or she can't hear from him. But I just heard this one's really whimsical. It's a bit more of a fairy tale. Apparently it's quite similar to The Princess Bride in terms of tone, and that's one I haven't read yet, but it is on my physical TBR, so maybe I'll pick that one up as well if I enjoy this. But I do have the audiobook of this one and I have been wanting to get to it for some time, so yeah, I'm going to get it on the cart so that hopefully it comes up as an option for my summer reading. The next one I definitely want to get on my TBR for the summer is The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. So Ashley Poston is the author of The Dead Romantics, which I read, I think it was about a year and a half ago. I think it was around autumn time, so I don't think it was last year, I think it was perhaps the year before. But basically The Dead Romantics was a really good read for me. I thought it was a really good romance. A lot of her books are like magical realism, so there will be a little bit of element of magic in there, but it's not kind of a fantasy or anything like that. It is just a little element of magic. So with this one in particular, we follow our main protagonist. I believe her name is Clementine, and essentially she moves into, her aunt passes away and she moves into her house which was left to her. But when she moves in, there is a man there. The only trouble is he's from 7 years in the past, so I'm not sure how that works out. I'm not sure how the love story goes with that one, but apparently it is really good. I've seen nothing but good things about this one, so definitely one I want to pick up in summer. I'm actually reading one from her at the minute. It's an arc of a novel love story which basically follows a protagonist who somehow inadvertently lands in the setting of her favourite romance novel, which can we imagine ending up in our favourite book in Polaris or something like that. But yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. But I'm currently reading that one. I've only just started it. I'm only a chapter or 2 in, so I haven't got too far in it yet to know how good it is, but I really enjoyed her writing in The Dead Romantics, so really excited to get to this one as well. This next one is one that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about, but it's called The Pomegranate Gate by Ariel Kaplan, and I seen Becca in the books talk about this one way back when it just came out, and essentially I bought it at the time because the standard edition was coming with these sprayed edges, so I just thought it was really pretty. But also the premise of it sounded really good. I believe it's set in Spain, or at least a kind of fantasy or kind of dystopian setting of what should be Spain, and there's an alternate world, and I think they go through a portal that kind of brings them to another world. But yeah, just I think with the setting of this one, I believe it's going to be in a warmer setting. I think it is going to be one that's going to be a bit more of a summer fantasy read. So as I say, I've wanted to get to it for some time. It's been on my TBR since I bought it. I think it was around November time, so I'm going to put it on here because hopefully that will give me the push to try and pick this one up because it does sound really intriguing, and yeah, I just keep forgetting about it. So the next one I'm going to add is actually one of the latest fairy look books that I've received, but I think just going by the cover, this is definitely going to be more of a summer read. So it's called The Honey Witch and it is by Sydney J. Shields, and this one follows a main protagonist who is basically not interested in any of the suitors that have been brought to her. I believe this is kind of a Regency era setting in the island of Innisfree, so basically she's not interested in any of the suitors that are coming along. It's not something that she's really wanting to do at this time, so she goes off with her aunt or her grandmother. It's one of the two. It's either her aunt or her grandmother, and decides that she will become the next Honey Witch. And the only problem is that the Honey Witch can't fall in love, so that's one of the stipulations. But at this point in time, she's not really worried about that. But while she's there, she comes across this woman who is basically a skeptic and doesn't really believe in magic, and because she's quite stubborn, she wants to prove this woman wrong, and I believe a relationship may develop between them two. So yeah, I think this one would be a good one to read in the summer. I think it gives kind of summery vibes, definitely spring vibes at least, and yeah, I just think it would be a good time to read this one. And I think if I don't read it in the summer, again, I'll probably just default it to next summer. So yeah, I'm going to put it on the cart and then hopefully it will come up within my summer reads. Okay, so the last few I'm going to add on are firstly the reappearance of Rachel Price. So this is the latest from Holly Jackson. She is the author of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I haven't read that series yet. I do want to get to it, but I think this one would be a nice fast read for the summer. You know, a bit of a thriller in there. I do usually have to be really in the mood for this type of thing, so that's why you won't see a lot of it on my TBR cart. But yeah, I think I'll just add this on here. It is one that I've seen a lot of people reading and saying that they really enjoyed. They said it was quite fast paced. I think this one would be a good one for kind of sitting in the garden and reading. So yeah, I'm going to add this on here. This next one is one that I haven't really heard a lot of people talk about, but it is one that I got with Illumicrate. So it's basically called Jara, I believe it's pronounced. I'll have to look that up, but it's S.J. Jones. And this one is basically a Guardians of the Dawn series. And I think just looking at it, it looks like a summery feel. I've had this one for quite some time and I've just never really gotten to it. So again, just going to put it on the cart so that hopefully it comes up on one of my prompts. And then because I still have some room on here, I think I'm just going to put this one back on because it's quite a fun romantasy, and yeah, I see no reason to not read it. So I think just because I do have the space, I'm going to put it back on there as an option. And just to give a quick run through of the ones that I've left on the shelf that were on there before, so I've got Uprooted by Naomi Novik, which is basically kind of a Beauty and the Beast retelling as well. The Prison Healer by Lynette Noni. Again, it's a bit of a fantasy romantasy. I've heard it is quite good. I left it on there because I don't think it kind of has a seasonal setting. So yeah, hopefully it's one I can get to soon. The Kiss of Deception, which basically follows a princess who is supposed to get married, but she's a runaway bride. She ends up running into someone who was supposed to kill her, and then also the prince that she was supposed to marry, but throughout the story we don't know which is which, and I believe there's a bit of a love triangle in that one. So yeah, I think that would still be a fun one to read in summer. Then we have Defy the Night by Bridget Kammerer. Again, I don't know if I pronounced that right, but Bridget Kammerer. And again, I just think it doesn't really have a seasonal setting, so I just want to keep it on there because I really loved her previous series, A Curse is Dark and Lonely, and I just thought that this would be a good one to have on there, and I'm hoping to get to it soon. Mask of Mirrors by M.A. Carrick, I've left on there because the setting is in Italy, I believe, so again, I think it will suit that kind of summer setting. Then I have Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, basically because I think it is just a bit more of a romance heavy one with, I think it's more magical realism than actual fantasy, even though it's set in an Undertaker's, which might be better for spooky season, but I do think it's going to be a romance heavy read. A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy L. Lin, and again, this is kind of Chinese mythology or folklore, I believe, so I do think that it's a better one for the summer reading. Signs of Cupidity by Raven Kennedy, again, it's a lot more of a romance read, so I think that would be good for a summer read. Bride of the Shadow King, this one I believe there are two sisters who are princesses. One is supposed to marry the king, but she has a disability or an illness or something like that, so the sister goes in her place. So again, could be a bit of a Beauty and the Beast retelling or something like that, so interested to see how that one goes. And then Keeping 13 is on there because I have Binding 13 on my TBR this month to read, so probably keep that on there so that I remember that it is one that I need to read. And then I do know that I want to order some books by Abby Jimenez, so I probably will add them on here as well, because looking at it, I have made it quite fantasy heavy even though it is summer reading. But yeah, I mean, it's my favourite genre, so it is always going to be a bit more tipped towards fantasy, but there's a few Abby Jimenez books that I want to read. So Part of Your World, which I've heard is a really good one. I want to start off that series and maybe read a bit more from her. So yeah, that's my summer TBR. That's kind of the books that I think I'll be trying to get to. I am very much a mood reader, so this could change massively depending on what I'm feeling in that month, but I think some of these are really good options. A lot of them are books that I've had for quite some time, but because I've had them maybe behind other books and things like that on my shelves, they're ones that I've just maybe forgotten about, so want to try and get to them while they're kind of seasonally appropriate. If you have read any of these, do let me know, because I would love to know your thoughts on them and any that I should be kind of rushing to get to and maybe putting on my set TBR before I do my prompts. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with this selection. I think there's quite a few books on there that I'm really excited to read, so happy to be finally getting to some of them. If you like this video, it would be great if you could give it a like, and if you want to see more from me, please do subscribe. I'm posting 2 videos a week usually, and it'll be videos like this, so going through my TBR, going through what I've read, doing my wrap-ups, book hauls, all bookish things like that. If you do have any suggestions for videos you'd like to see from me, don't hesitate to put them in the comments below, and I'll be looking through some of those. Other than that, thanks so much for watching this one. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!